Ethan Caldwell first called his wife a luxury nanny in open court, and he did it like it was a punchline everyone should applaud. The family courtroom was all polished wood and cold light. Half the benches were filled. Curious strangers, a few reporters, people who loved scandal the way others loved sports. Ethan sat at the petitioner's table in a suit that looked custom-built for arrogance. His attorney, Malcolm Reese, had binders stacked like weapons. Across the aisle, Claire Caldwell sat alone. No lawyer, no assistant, no neat columns of tabs. Just a slim manila envelope, a worn notebook, and hands folded tight enough to whiten her knuckles. She didn't look helpless. She looked controlled, like someone who'd learned to breathe underwater. The clerk called the case. The judge entered. Everyone rose, then settled into that thick official silence. Caldwell versus Caldwell, the judge said. Divorce, custody, and asset division. Ethan leaned toward the microphone before his lawyer even stood. Your Honor, he said, voice smooth, I've supported Claire for 11 years. I gave her everything, home, staff, resources. She's never had to work. Her job has been... He turned to her with a smile that wasn't friendly. Her job has been being a luxury nanny in designer clothes. A couple of people in the gallery let out a laugh. The judge's eyes lifted, and the laughter died. But the insult stayed, hanging over Claire's head like a label stuck to her skin. Malcolm rose. Your Honor, we're seeking primary custody and enforcement of the prenuptial agreement. Mr. Caldwell is the stable provider, and, as we'll show, the practical parent. Ms. Caldwell's role has been domestic, and even that has been largely outsourced. Outsourced, Claire murmured, barely audible like the word burned. The judge looked at her. Ms. Caldwell, you're representing yourself today? Yes, Your Honor. Do you understand what's at stake? Claire lifted her eyes, calm, clear. I do. Ethan leaned back, satisfied, as if the case were already a victory lap. He wanted custody, control, and a public win. More than anything, he wanted Claire to look small in a room full of strangers. Now, before we go any further, if you're into intense courtroom stories where the truth shows up late but hits hard, tap like and subscribe after this hook. It helps more of these stories reach people who need the reminder that arrogance isn't the same as power. Because what Ethan didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that Claire had come prepared, not with theatrics, with proof. And that manila envelope on her table wasn't paperwork. It was a fuse. The judge nodded to Malcolm. Call your first witness. We call Mr. Ethan Caldwell. Ethan walked to the stand like he was heading to accept an award. He raised his hand, swore to tell the truth, and sat down, still wearing that practiced smile. Mr. Caldwell, Malcolm began, describe your career. I'm founder and CEO of Caldwell Innovations, Ethan said. Enterprise security software. And your income? Last year, roughly 4.2 million. A murmur ran through the gallery. Claire didn't move. And Ms. Caldwell's income? Malcolm asked. Ethan's smile widened. She doesn't have one. And who pays household expenses? I do, mortgage, tuition, staff, everything. Malcolm leaned in. You'd say Ms. Caldwell is financially dependent? Completely, Ethan said. Then for the room, and ungrateful. The judge's pen paused. Mr. Caldwell, this isn't a stage. Ethan gave a polite nod. Of course, Your Honor. But his eyes on Claire were sharp, enjoying this. He wanted the court to see a man with money and a woman with nothing. Claire stared at her notebook like it was the only steady thing in the room. Inside it were dates, names, and nights Ethan didn't know existed, the kind of nights you remember forever when you're the one holding a child who can't breathe. She didn't argue yet. She didn't interrupt. She let him build the lie tall. Because a tall lie falls louder. The judge looked back to Malcolm. Proceed. Malcolm's voice stayed confident. Mr. Caldwell, tell the court about your involvement with your children. Ethan's smile returned, bright and certain. Claire's fingers drifted just for a second toward the edge of the manila envelope, like checking to make sure the match was still there. Malcolm guided Ethan through testimony like a man leading a tour, smooth, confident, and carefully lit. Mr. Caldwell, Malcolm said, how would you describe your role as a parent? Ethan sighed, humble on command. Hands-on. My schedule is intense, but I'm the one who makes decisions. Tutors, activities, discipline, structure. And Ms. Caldwell? Malcolm asked, turning toward Claire's empty chair beside her. Ethan's mouth twisted. She's around, but she's not reliable. She gets overwhelmed. She forgets things. That's why we've always had help. He said help the way people say crutch. Malcolm nodded. You called her a luxury nanny, as explain. It's accurate, Ethan said. She gets the perks of motherhood without the responsibility. She supervises people who do the work. Claire felt the heat climb into her face, then settle into her ribs. This wasn't new. Ethan had been shrinking her in private for years. He was just doing it now with microphones. The judge's eyes lifted. Mr. Caldwell, are you alleging she's unfit? Ethan smiled slightly. I'm saying she can't handle them alone. The kids deserve stability, not feelings. The word dripped contempt. Malcolm shifted to money, because money was Ethan's favorite language. Tell the court about the prenuptial agreement. Ethan's confidence returned full force. It's clear. Claire waived claims to my company, limited spousal support, 12 months max. She signed it willingly. And why did you want that protection? Malcolm asked. Ethan spread his hands. I've seen what happens when people marry money. They try to take it. I wanted fairness. Claire's fingers clenched around her pen. Fairness from the man who measured love in invoices. Malcolm lifted a stack of glossy photos and handed them to the clerk. Your Honor, exhibits show Mr. Caldwell's active parenting. The judge flipped through pictures. Ethan at a school event. Ethan holding a soccer trophy. Ethan reading a bedtime book in a perfectly staged room. Ethan smiled wider with every page, like the photos were proof of character. Claire stared at them and felt something go still inside her, not because she believed them, because she recognized them. The science fair. Ethan had arrived for 10 minutes, took pictures, then left before the judging. The soccer trophy? He'd missed every practice. He showed up for the final with a photographer. And the bedtime photo? The background was the guest room, the one Ethan used when he came home late and didn't want to wake the kids. He didn't show up for the work. He showed up for the evidence. Malcolm turned toward Claire. Ms. Caldwell, you may cross-examine. Claire stood. Her chair scraped softly. The room watched her like she was about to fail publicly. Ethan leaned back smug and murmured, just loud enough for her to catch, Don't embarrass yourself. Claire walked to the podium without papers, without drama. Then she asked in the calmest voice she had, Mr. Caldwell, how many nights did you wake up when our son had asthma attacks? Ethan blinked. Excuse me. How many? Claire repeated. Ethan laughed, trying to turn it back into a joke. I don't keep count. I do, Claire said, because someone had to. The judge's pen slowed. A few heads in the gallery lifted. Claire flipped her notebook open. December 3rd, 3 a.m. ER. Where were you? Ethan's smile faltered. Working. December 17th, Claire continued. 2 a.m. Same thing. Where were you? Out of town. Where? Ethan's eyes flicked to Malcolm. Business. Claire let a thin silence stretch. Do you know our daughter's homeroom teacher's name? Ethan scoffed. She has multiple teachers. Homeroom, Claire said. Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. Her best friend? Claire asked. Ridiculous. Our son's medication? Claire pressed. Ethan's jaw tightened. I have people who handle that. The courtroom shifted. The judge's eyes sharpened. Claire didn't smile. People, she repeated. Who? Ethan realized the trap too late. The nanny, staff, whatever. I run a company. Claire's voice stayed steady. And I raise the kids. Ethan snapped loud now. You couldn't do it without help. The judge's voice cut in. Mr. Caldwell, answer questions, no speeches. Claire looked at him, and for the first time her calm carried an edge. Mr. Caldwell, she said, when you weren't home, who was really taking care of the kids? Ethan laughed like the question was cute. The nanny, he said, like I told you. Jasmine, and before her, others. We've always had help because you, he tilted his head, savoring it, because your temperament isn't suited for full-time parenting. Temperament, Claire repeated quietly. Ethan nodded, pleased. You get emotional. You shut down. You disappear for hours. The kid shouldn't be raised by someone who can't regulate herself, the gallery murmured. Claire felt the old humiliation trying to rise, the same one Ethan used at home when he'd tell her she was too sensitive after he'd cut her down. Malcolm stepped in, eager to seal it. Your Honor, this is exactly why temporary primary custody should be granted to Mr. Caldwell. Ms. Caldwell lacks independent income, independent stability, and independent capability. She hasn't sought employment. She has no plan. Ethan's smile returned. Without me, he said, she has nothing. The judge's eyes narrowed. Ms. Caldwell, do you have evidence to present today? Yes, Claire answered. Records, communications, witnesses. Malcolm's mouth curled. Witnesses who? The women she complains to at brunch? Claire didn't look at him. People who have seen what happens when Mr. Caldwell isn't home. Malcolm stood sharp. Your Honor, we object to any surprise witnesses. We have not received a witness list. Claire's stomach tightened. She had filed it. She remembered the stamp, the date, the clerk's nod. But Ethan's side had drowned her in motions, delays, and procedural tricks that worked best against someone alone. I filed it, Claire said quickly. I can provide proof. Malcolm shook his head. We were never served. The judge exhaled, weighing law against fairness. Ms. Caldwell, the court cannot allow ambush testimony without notice. Ethan leaned toward the microphone, voice dripping satisfaction. That's what I've been saying, Your Honor. She's disorganized. She can't follow instructions. How is she supposed to raise children without structure? Claire felt the room closing in. This was his plan. Make her look incompetent until the court believed it. The judge's tone softened, almost weary. Ms. Caldwell, I strongly recommend you seek counsel. I can grant a continuance. Ethan laughed. A continuance so she can drag this out and drain my bank account longer? I'm not here for your bank account, Claire said. Ethan's eyes flashed. Sure, that's why you married me. The lie was simple, easy, the kind that sounded believable if you didn't know the years behind it. Malcolm added another blow. Your Honor, we also submitted a sworn statement from the household manager, indicating Ms. Caldwell frequently left the children with staff for personal appointments. We request temporary primary custody today, pending evaluation. Temporary custody. Even the words felt like a door slamming. Claire shook her head. That statement isn't true. And your proof? Malcolm asked, almost kindly, like he was offering her a way out. Your notebook? Claire could feel Ethan watching her with that cold excitement, waiting for her to crumble so he could say, See? This is what I meant. Her fingers brushed the edge of the manila envelope again. Inside were prints, timestamps, messages, things she'd held back because timing mattered. She needed the court to hear the lie fully before the truth could crush it. She looked at the judge. Your Honor, if the court is considering temporary custody today, I need permission to call one witness immediately. Malcolm started to object. The judge held up a hand. One witness, she said, 10 minutes. Ethan smiled like he was granting charity. Go ahead, he murmured. Let your nanny tell the court how little you do. Claire nodded once, then spoke the name that made Ethan's smile flicker. I call Jasmine Hart. For the first time that morning, Ethan didn't look amused. He looked uncertain. And Claire realized something. He wasn't afraid of her tears. He wasn't afraid of her feelings. He was afraid of someone who had been in the house when he wasn't. Someone who knew the truth he couldn't pose for. At first, the courtroom waited, and nothing happened. The bailiff stepped into the hall to call the witness. Malcolm whispered to Ethan, confident again, and Ethan's grin returned like a stain that wouldn't wash out. Minutes passed. The judge glanced at the clock. Ms. Caldwell, we have limited time. Claire's heart hammered. Jasmine had promised she would come. Jasmine had said she was done being used, but Jasmine had also been scared. Ethan had money, lawyers, and a talent for making people regret speaking. The bailiff returned alone and murmured something to the judge. The judge's expression tightened. Ms. Caldwell, she said, the court has been informed Ms. Hart is not present in the building. Ethan's laughter was immediate. Even your own nanny doesn't show up for you. Claire swallowed and forced her voice steady. Your Honor, may I request a brief recess? I believe she's nearby. Malcolm stood. Absolutely not. This is delay. Ethan leaned in, enjoying himself. This is what I mean. Excuses, chaos always. The judge's patience thinned. Ms. Caldwell, you were given 10 minutes. If your witness cannot appear, we proceed. Claire felt the old panic claw at her chest, the familiar sensation of being cornered while Ethan smiled. Then, from the hallway, a voice cut through the tension. Your Honor, I'm here. Every head turned. Jasmine Hart stepped into the courtroom, breathless, hair pulled back, eyes wide with the kind of fear that still chooses to walk forward. She didn't look like a hero. She looked like someone who'd finally decided she couldn't carry a lie anymore. Ethan's smile froze. Jasmine took the oath and sat down, hands clasped tight. Malcolm moved fast. Ms. Hart, you signed a non-disclosure agreement, correct? Yes. So you understand you are violating it by testifying? Jasmine's eyes lifted, steadying. I understand I'm under oath. Ethan snapped. She stole information. The judge's gavel struck. "Mr. Caldwell, you will not interrupt." Claire stepped to the podium. "Ms. Hart, how long were you employed by the Caldwell family?" 2 years, Jasmine said, full-time. "Who hired you?" "Mr. Caldwell." Ethan smirked as if that proved something. "Because she needed help," he muttered. Claire ignored him. "Ms. Hart, what did your job include?" Jasmine exhaled shakily. "Everything. Morning routines, meals, homework, school emails, medications, bedtime. I logged it all. I was required to submit weekly reports." "To whom?" Claire asked. Jasmine hesitated, then said the name like it was a confession. "Sloan Mercer." Ethan shot upright. "Sloan is my executive assistant." "And she managed the house reports," Jasmine said, voice firmer now. "She told me what to write, what to emphasize. She said Mr. Caldwell needed documentation." Malcolm's face tightened. "Documentation for what?" Jasmine swallowed. "For court." The room shifted. Even the judge leaned forward slightly. Claire's voice stayed soft. "Ms. Hart, how often was Mr. Caldwell home on weeknights?" Jasmine looked down, then up. "Most weeks, one night. Sometimes none." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Liar." The judge's gaze cut to him. "One more word." Claire continued. "When Mr. Caldwell wasn't home, who was with the children?" Jasmine's eyes filled and her answer was simple. "Miss Caldwell." Ethan laughed sharp. "Please, she was upstairs half the time." Jasmine snapped her head toward him. "No," she said, and the room felt it. "She was there. Every morning, every night. She knew their routines, their fears, their allergies. She sat on the floor with your son during breathing treatments while you were gone." "Gone where?" Claire asked. Jasmine's hands trembled. "I don't know where you were," she said to Ethan without even meaning to. "But I know you weren't home." Claire's voice tightened. "Ms. Hart, were you ever instructed to describe me in a certain way?" Jasmine nodded once. "Yes." "How?" Jasmine took a breath. "I was told to call you a luxury nanny. I was told to say you didn't do anything. And I was told, explicitly, to never tell anyone who was really taking care of the kids." The judge's pen stopped. The courtroom went still. Ethan's confidence didn't just crack. It flinched. And Claire, for the first time all day, felt the room stop looking past her. Because the lie Ethan built had one fatal weakness. It had witnesses. Malcolm tried to recover the room with procedure, the way powerful people do when truth starts getting loud. "Ms. Hart," he said, "you're under contract. You're aware of that." "I'm aware," Jasmine replied. "I'm also aware I was threatened." Ethan's head snapped up. "I never threatened you." Jasmine reached into her purse and pulled out a printed screenshot with shaking fingers. "You texted me," she said, voice tight. "You said, 'If you speak, I'll ruin you. Don't forget what you signed.'" Malcolm stepped forward. "Objection, no authentication." Claire looked at the judge. "Your Honor, the phone numbers are visible. The timestamps match the period of Ms. Hart's employment. We can authenticate through Ms. Hart's device if needed." The judge's eyes narrowed as she read. "Overruled for now, proceed." Ethan stared at the table like it might swallow him. Claire turned to Jasmine. "Ms. Hart, you said you submitted weekly reports. Did you keep copies?" Jasmine nodded and produced a small flash drive. "Daily logs," she said. "Time-stamped photos, messages from Mr. Caldwell and Sloan Mercer." Malcolm's smile was strained now. "Your Honor, this is surprise evidence." The judge didn't look impressed. "Ms. Caldwell, did you request discovery?" "Yes," Claire said, "repeatedly." Malcolm protested. "We were within our rights." "Enough," the judge cut in. "If evidence exists that goes to custody and credibility, I will hear it." Claire's pulse thudded in her ears, but her voice stayed steady. "Miss Hart, in these logs, how often is Mr. Caldwell listed as present for bedtime?" Jasmine didn't hesitate. "Rarely." "How rarely?" the judge asked directly, her patience for vagueness gone. Jasmine swallowed. "In a 3-month period, 4 times." A wave of murmurs rolled through the gallery. "And how often is Miss Caldwell present?" Claire asked. "Every night," Jasmine said, "even when she was exhausted. Even when your son was sick." Ethan's lips moved, but no sound came out. "Now, if you've made it this far, you can probably feel the courtroom shifting. This is where the story stops being about money and starts being about truth. So if you want more dramas like this, hit like and subscribe. It tells YouTube you're here for stories where people who weaponize power finally meet consequences." Claire looked at the judge. "Your Honor, there's more, but I need counsel to present it properly." The judge tilted her head. "Do you have counsel available, Miss Caldwell?" "Yes," Claire said. Ethan's head snapped toward her. "What?" Claire didn't gloat. She simply turned her palm upward, as if inviting the truth to enter. The courtroom doors opened. A woman walked in wearing a charcoal suit and the kind of confidence that didn't need noise. Victoria Chen. Her name rippled through the benches like a rumor becoming real. She approached Claire's table and placed a thick folder down with a soft, final thud. "Your Honor," Victoria said. "Victoria Chen for Ms. Caldwell. We are filing an emergency motion to compel discovery, to admit business record evidence from Ms. Hart, and to set aside the prenuptial agreement based on incomplete disclosure and suspected fraud." Malcolm's posture stiffened. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular." The judge's eyes narrowed. "So is attempted character assassination and fabricated documentation." Victoria nodded once. "Thank you, Your Honor." Ethan stared at Claire like he couldn't reconcile the woman he'd mocked with the reality sitting beside her now. Victoria didn't look at him. She looked at the judge, then at Jasmine. "Miss Hart, you said Sloane Mercer directed you to build a narrative." "Yes." "Did she ever tell you why?" Victoria asked. Jasmine's voice came out quiet but clear. She said Mr. Caldwell wanted custody, not because he wanted to parent more, because he wanted to punish Miss Caldwell. Ethan's face hardened. "This is revenge." Victoria finally looked at him, eyes flat. "No, Mr. Caldwell," she said. "This is evidence." She turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, we request permission to proceed with direct examination and then recall Mr. Caldwell for cross." The judge's voice was firm. "Granted." Ethan swallowed, the first visible sign that he understood something important. He had come to court expecting to humiliate a woman he thought was alone. And now the person he'd labeled a luxury nanny had legal counsel, witnesses, and a record of his absence measured in timestamps. The kind of timestamps that don't care how expensive your watch is. Victoria Chen handled the courtroom like she'd been born inside its rules. "Ms. Hart," she said, "these daily logs, were they created in the regular course of your employment?" "Yes," Jasmine answered. "I was required to log the Children's Day." "And who required that?" Victoria asked. "Mr. Caldwell and Miss Mercer." Victoria turned toward the judge. "Your Honor, these are business records. They reflect routine documentation, not litigation strategy." Malcolm objected, but the judge's patience was gone. "I'll admit them for review. Continue." Victoria flipped pages with quiet precision. "Ms. Hart, in these logs, how often is Mr. Caldwell listed as present for school drop-off?" Jasmine frowned. "Almost never." "School pickup?" "Never," Jasmine said, and the word rang. "Bedtime?" Victoria asked. "Rare," Jasmine repeated. 4 times in 3 months." Victoria nodded and faced the judge. "This is consistent with Ms. Caldwell's testimony. It contradicts Mr. Caldwell's." Ethan's face tightened. He tried to look bored, but his knee bounced under the table. Victoria continued. "Ms. Hart, the photos Mr. Caldwell submitted, school events, sports, bedtime, do your records reflect extended involvement on those days?" Jasmine swallowed. "No. He'd arrive, take pictures, then leave. Sometimes Sloane would tell me, 'Make sure the kids are dressed cute.'" The gallery murmured. The judge watched Ethan with a look that was no longer neutral. Victoria lifted a printout. "Your Honor, Exhibit 14, a message from Mr. Caldwell to Ms. Mercer. I need content for court. Schedule something with the kids this weekend." Ethan snapped. "That's not what it means." The judge's gavel struck. "Mr. Caldwell, do not speak." Victoria's tone stayed calm. "Ms. Hart, was there ever a time the children were left without adequate supervision?" Jasmine hesitated, then nodded. "Once. Mr. Caldwell promised he'd be home by 7. He wasn't. Ms. Caldwell was at urgent care with our son. Sloane told me to leave anyway because my shift ended. I refused. I stayed." The judge's eyes sharpened. "Ms. Mercer directed you to leave children unsupervised?" Jasmine nodded. "Yes." Malcolm's face went pale for half a second. Victoria turned toward Ethan's table. "Your Honor, this goes directly to the children's safety and to the credibility of the household manager statement." The judge's voice was cold. "I agree." Victoria's gaze returned to Jasmine. "Ms. Hart, did Ms. Mercer ever instruct you to log Ms. Caldwell as unavailable?" "Yes," Jasmine said, "when she was working downstairs." "Working," Victoria repeated. "Doing what?" Jasmine glanced at Claire, then back to Victoria. "On a laptop, coding. I didn't understand it, but she'd be on calls sometimes. She'd fix things and then go right back upstairs for bedtime. A subtle shift moved through the gallery again. A mother, a coder, a woman Ethan had described as nothing. Victoria let the words breathe. Then she said, "Your Honor, we request to recall Mr. Caldwell." Ethan stood for cross-examination, but he didn't walk to the stand like he had earlier. Now he moved like a man stepping into a spotlight he couldn't control. He swore again, sat down. Victoria approached the podium. "Mr. Caldwell," she began, "you testified your wife has no income and no skills." Ethan's jaw flexed. "Yes. You also testified you coordinated tutors, school communication, and daily parenting." "Yes." "In 3 months of staff logs, your name appears at bedtime 4 times, Victoria said. "How do you explain that?" Ethan sneered. "Staff logs aren't the truth. They were created for your household at your request and sent to your assistant," Victoria replied. "So they're reliable when they make your wife look bad, but unreliable when they make you look absent." Ethan's cheeks reddened. "That's not what I said." "Then say what you mean," Victoria said, "under oath." Ethan stared at her, breathing hard, and for the first time he looked like a man realizing the rules he used against Claire might finally be used against him. And Victoria wasn't finished. Not even close. Victoria didn't raise her voice. She didn't need volume, she had receipts. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, "Caldwell Innovations was founded in 2015, correct?" "Yes," Ethan said, wary. "And you were married when it was founded?" "Yes." "You testified you built the company from the ground up," Victoria continued. "Did the seed funding include a $200,000 wire transfer from an account in Ms. Caldwell's maiden name?" Ethan blinked. "I don't recall." Victoria held up bank records. "Harbor Crest Financial, April 2nd, 2015. Transfer to your incorporation account. Do you deny receiving it?" Ethan's throat moved. "We were married. It was shared." "Interesting," Victoria said, "because in your prenuptial disclosures you listed Ms. Caldwell's contribution as none and her assets as minimal." Malcolm rose, but the judge cut him off with a look. He sat. Victoria took another page. "Mr. Caldwell, who wrote the encryption algorithm used in your company's flagship product?" "Me," Ethan said quickly. Victoria nodded as if she'd expected that answer. "Then you can explain why the original code repository was registered under the username Marlowe, Ms. Caldwell's maiden name. The gallery made that soft sound people make when they witness a lie dying." Ethan snapped. "She used my computer." Victoria didn't flinch. "And she also filed a patent, didn't she?" Ethan's face tightened. "No." Victoria placed a document in view. Exhibit 25, U.S. patent granted to Claire Marlowe Caldwell in 2016, licensed to Caldwell Innovations. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. The arrogance that had carried him all morning suddenly had to share space with panic. Victoria's voice sharpened just slightly. "So when you called your wife a luxury nanny, you were talking about the inventor whose intellectual property made you rich." Ethan's eyes darted to Claire, fury and betrayal mixing. "She's doing this to hurt me." Claire's voice was quiet, but it cut straight through him. "I didn't do this, you did, when you decided lying was easier than sharing credit." Victoria continued. "Now let's talk about where your money actually went. Do you recognize Mercer Consulting?" Ethan's jaw flexed. "Yes, it's a vendor." "A vendor?" Victoria repeated. "An LLC registered to Sloan Mercer." Ethan's eyes flashed. "She does consulting." "How much did you pay her through that LLC last year?" Victoria asked. "I don't know." Victoria lifted a summary page. $480,000. The courtroom murmured louder. The judge struck the gavel, but even she couldn't hide the disgust in her eyes. Ethan's voice rose. "That's business expense!" Victoria's expression stayed calm. "At midnight, from hotel networks, while you testified you were working and while your children were at home." Ethan leaned forward, trying to attack. "This is irrelevant to custody." Victoria answered, "It's relevant because you are asking a court to hand you children while you fabricate evidence and divert assets." Then she slid one more document onto the podium, almost gently. "Do you recognize this signature, Mr. Caldwell?" Ethan looked relieved to find something familiar. "That's Claire's." "It's on a stock transfer agreement dated June 2019, Victoria said. "It transfers Ms. Caldwell's patent licensing shares to you." Ethan nodded, too quick. "She signed it willingly. She wanted me to have full control." Victoria's voice softened into something dangerous. Then you won't mind if we compare it to her verified signatures. Ethan's eyes narrowed. What are you implying? I'm implying you forged it, Victoria said. The courtroom went dead quiet. Ethan barked a laugh that sounded wrong. That's insane. The judge leaned forward, voice low. Mr. Caldwell, you are under oath. If you forged documents or lied to this court, there will be consequences. Ethan's throat bobbed. I didn't... Your Honor, Victoria said, we request a handwriting analysis and forensic accounting, plus sanctions for discovery obstruction. Ethan tried one last time to reclaim control. He pointed at Claire. You're not a real... A real what? Victoria asked. A real parent. The logs say otherwise, a real professional, the records say otherwise. Claire finally looked at Ethan fully. You humiliated me because you thought I'd stay quiet, she said. You called me a luxury nanny because you needed everyone to believe I was replaceable. Her voice didn't shake. I'm not. Victoria turned toward the judge. Your Honor, the court can already see the pattern. Deception, control, and a coordinated effort to erase Ms. Caldwell's role as parent and partner. The judge's eyes stayed on Ethan, and in that look was something he couldn't buy. Judgment, and the realization, spreading across his face like dawn, that this case had stopped being a performance. Now it was an audit of his parenting, his finances, and his character. And audits don't care how loud you laugh. Daniel Ortiz took the stand with the posture of a man who'd never wanted to be here. He stated his title, Director of Security Engineering, then looked at Claire with something close to respect. Victoria's questions were simple. Mr. Ortiz, do you recognize the account name C. Marlowe in your internal systems? Daniel nodded. Yes. Whose account was it? Claire's heart thudded. Ethan's lawyer looked ready to object, but the judge lifted a hand. Daniel answered, Ms. Caldwell's. A murmur rolled through the courtroom. Tell the court what that account did, Victoria said. Daniel exhaled. Code reviews, security patches, bug fixes, sometimes full modules, usually late at night. How do you know it was Ms. Caldwell? Victoria asked. Because she joined calls, Daniel said. Camera off sometimes, voice low because her kids were asleep, but it was her, and the solutions were brilliant. Ethan's face tightened. He stared straight ahead like looking at Claire would admit something he'd spent years denying. Victoria held up an email. Do you recognize this message from Mr. Caldwell? My wife is not to be referenced in any documentation. Keep her name out of internal reports. Daniel nodded, uncomfortable. Yes? The judge leaned forward. Mr. Ortiz, why would a CEO issue that instruction? Daniel looked at the judge. Because she was involved and he didn't want anyone to know. Ethan's hands clenched. Victoria asked one more question, the one that made the room feel like it shifted on its foundation. Did Ms. Caldwell ever receive compensation or equity for that work? Daniel shook his head. Not that I saw. Victoria sat down. The evidence had landed. The judge looked at Claire. Ms. Caldwell, do you want to address the court? Claire stood slowly. Years of being told to soften herself, shrink herself, and keep the peace tried to rise in her throat like a gag. She swallowed it. Yes, Your Honor, she said. I'm not here to destroy Ethan. I'm here to stop him from rewriting my life. Ethan scoffed, too quiet to be a full interruption. The judge shot him a warning look. Claire continued. When he calls me a luxury nanny, he's doing what he's always done. He takes what I do, the work that keeps our kids safe, and he turns it into a joke so he doesn't have to face how absent he's been. She looked at the judge. I didn't stop being a professional because I was weak. I stopped because Ethan asked me to. He said he needed to look like the genius founder. He promised that if I supported him, he'd support our family. Ethan's voice burst out sharp. I never said that! The gavel struck. Mr. Caldwell, the judge warned, do not interrupt. Claire's eyes moved to Ethan for a beat. You did, she said quietly, in our kitchen, the day our daughter took her first steps and you weren't there. Silence fell like a curtain. Claire's voice softened. I got up for the asthma attacks. I handled the teachers, the meds, the homework, the tears. I did bedtime every night. And when the house was finally quiet, I went downstairs and worked on code so the company wouldn't collapse and take our family with it. Her eyes shined, but she didn't cry. And then he paid his assistant nearly $500,000 to help him build a story that I'm useless. Ethan's face twisted. You're making me sound like a monster. Claire nodded once. You're a father who wanted custody as punishment. That's what scares me. Victoria rose. Your Honor, based on testimony and exhibits, we request immediate primary custody to Ms. Caldwell, supervised visitation pending evaluation, forensic accounting, and suspension of the prenuptial agreement pending investigation. Malcolm rose too, clinging to his last rope. Your Honor, my client is a provider. Busy does not equal unfit. Ms. Caldwell is emotional and... The judge's eyes flashed. Mr. Reese, I've heard enough insults disguised as arguments. Malcolm swallowed and changed tactics. Then allow us to call Miss Sloane Mercer. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes did. We would welcome that. The judge nodded. Call her. And as the bailiff moved toward the door, Ethan's face drained of color. Because Sloane Mercer wasn't a rumor anymore, she was about to be sworn in. And lies don't look as brave when they're sitting in the witness chair. Sloane Mercer entered the courtroom, dressed like she'd planned to be seen. She wore a flawless suit, carried a leather folder, and walked with the calm of someone used to controlling rooms with a smile. She took the oath without blinking and sat down as if she were answering questions for a magazine profile. Malcolm started gently. Ms. Mercer, state your relationship to Mr. Caldwell. I'm his executive assistant, Sloane said. I manage his calendar and communications. And do you manage the Caldwell household? No, Sloane replied smoothly. Absolutely not. Victoria stood. Ms. Mercer, do you recognize Mercer Consulting? Sloane's eyes flickered. Yes, it's my company. Your company received payments from Caldwell Innovations, Victoria said. For consulting? Yes. How much did you receive last year? Victoria asked. I don't know the exact figure. Victoria lifted a document. $480,000. A murmur rose. Sloane's smile tightened. That sounds possible. Victoria's tone stayed calm. What services did you provide for nearly $500,000? Brand strategy, Sloane said. Executive efficiency. Executive efficiency, Victoria repeated. Like ensuring your executive looks like a devoted father in a custody fight? Malcolm jumped up. Objection! The judge's eyes didn't move. Overruled. Victoria stepped closer. Ms. Mercer, did you receive weekly childcare logs from Jasmine Hart? Sloane answered too quickly. No. Victoria nodded as if she expected the lie. Exhibit 31 emails from Ms. Hart to you every Friday. Subject line, weekly household log. Do you deny receiving them? Sloane swallowed. I may have been copied. Copied, Victoria echoed. Then you were aware of them? Sloane's jaw tightened. Possibly. Victoria held up another printout. Exhibit 32, your reply received. Adjust Claire's notes for court. Sloane's face went pale. The calm cracked at the edges. The judge leaned forward. Ms. Mercer, did you fabricate documentation to influence custody proceedings? Sloane's voice sharpened. No. Victoria didn't blink. Then explain the tracked changes draft of the household manager statement submitted to this court. Metadata shows it was created on Mr. Caldwell's company laptop and edited by you. Sloane's eyes darted to Ethan. He stared at the table, frozen, like silence could save him. Victoria's voice dropped. Ms. Mercer, did you instruct staff to call Ms. Caldwell a luxury nanny? No, Sloane snapped louder than she meant. Victoria turned to the clerk. Your Honor, Exhibit 33, a voice memo recorded by Ms. Hart, single-party consent. It includes Ms. Mercer's instruction. Malcolm protested, but the judge waved him off. Play it. The memo filled the room with Sloane's voice, smooth, mocking, confident. Keep calling her the luxury nanny, it makes her look lazy. Ethan needs that. When it ended, silence slammed down. Sloane's face looked suddenly human, flushed, trapped, afraid. Ethan's lips parted in a whisper. Don't. Victoria didn't soften. Ms. Mercer, are you having an affair with Mr. Caldwell? Malcolm shot up. Objection, relevance. The judge's eyes were ice, overruled bias and motive. Sloane's mouth opened, then closed. She glanced at Ethan again, and whatever she saw there, fear, abandonment, calculation, made her composure splinter. Yes, she said, yes, I was. A sound broke from the gallery, half gasp, half outrage. The judge struck the gavel, but her expression stayed hard. Ethan erupted. Shut up! The bailiff moved instantly. The judge stood. Mr. Caldwell, you are in contempt. Sit down and remain silent. Ethan sat shaking. The arrogance finally stripped off him in public. The judge turned to Sloane. Ms. Mercer, you have admitted to coordinating derogatory narrative building, and you appear to have participated in documentation intended to mislead this court. You should retain counsel. Sloane's lips trembled. "I didn't mean—" "You meant enough," the judge said. Victoria returned to her table. Claire felt her own body tremble, not from fear now, but from a strange, fierce relief. The lie wasn't winning anymore. The judge looked down at her notes, then up at Ethan. "Mr. Caldwell," she said slowly, "you attempted to paint your wife as incompetent and dependent. What I have heard today is a pattern of manipulation, staged evidence, and a coordinated effort to erase the actual caregiver." Ethan's face crumpled into something smaller than anger. The judge inhaled, the kind of breath people take before a door closes forever. "Counsel," she said, "I'm prepared to rule." The courtroom went so quiet that even the fluorescent hum seemed loud. The judge sat upright, hands folded, eyes steady. "This court has one job," she said, "to protect the best interests of the children and to ensure these proceedings are grounded in truth." Her gaze moved to Ethan. "Mr. Caldwell, you presented yourself as the primary caregiver. You submitted staged photographs and relied on staff statements that now appear fabricated. You and your agents attempted to diminish Ms. Caldwell with insults, calling her a luxury nanny, while evidence shows she has been the consistent, hands-on parent." Ethan's mouth twitched, as if he wanted to object to the word consistent, like consistency was something he could purchase. The judge continued. "On custody, the court finds, based on sworn testimony and admitted exhibits, that Ms. Caldwell has been the children's primary caregiver. She has handled medical needs, school communication, daily routines, and emotional stability. This court orders primary physical custody to Ms. Caldwell effective immediately." Claire's breath left her body in a shaky exhale. Her hands trembled and Victoria's hand settled on her forearm, steady and warm. The judge's eyes stayed on Ethan. "Mr. Caldwell will have supervised visitation, pending a full custody evaluation. You will not remove the children from the state without written permission from this court." Ethan swallowed hard, his voice came out raw. "Supervised, that's—" The gavel struck. "Mr. Caldwell, silence." The judge looked to Malcolm. "Counsel, you may advise your client outside the record." Then she turned back to the financial side of the case. On assets and the prenuptial agreement, credible evidence has been introduced indicating incomplete disclosure at signing, suspected forgery of a stock transfer, and potential concealment or diversion of marital funds through third-party entities. Ethan's face went pale. The judge continued. "The court orders a forensic accounting. The court temporarily suspends enforcement of the prenuptial agreement pending investigation. Mr. Caldwell is ordered to produce full financial records, including corporate ledgers, consulting contracts, and communications related to Mercer Consulting within 14 days. Failure will result in sanctions." Ethan's shoulders sagged. For the first time, he looked like he understood what power actually was in that room. Not money, not charm, not a lawyer's confidence. A judge's authority. "And," the judge said, voice colder, "this court is referring the evidence of possible forgery and financial misconduct to the appropriate authorities for review." A low sound escaped the gallery, shock mixed with satisfaction. Even people who didn't know Claire could recognize consequences when they heard them. The judge looked at Ethan one last time. "Mr. Caldwell, you attempted to use these children as leverage. You attempted to punish their mother by erasing her. You will not do that in my courtroom." Then her gaze moved to Claire. "Ms. Caldwell, you are ordered to facilitate the children's relationship with their father within the boundaries of safety set by this court. You will also be provided immediate access to funds for the children's needs, pending the accounting." Claire nodded, tears threatening, but she held herself together the way she always had, quietly, fiercely. The judge leaned back. "Does either party have anything further before we adjourn?" Victoria rose. "No, Your Honor." Malcolm opened his mouth, then closed it. "No, Your Honor." The judge lifted the gavel. "Court is adjourned." The sound of it echoed like a final answer. Outside, the winter air hit Claire's lungs like something clean. The world hadn't magically become easy. Ethan would try to bargain, threaten, spin. Men like him always did. But he couldn't spin the record. He couldn't rewrite sworn testimony. And he couldn't undo the moment the courtroom heard the simplest truth. The woman he tried to humiliate was the one actually doing the work, raising the kids, holding the nights together, building the life he took credit for. Claire paused on the courthouse steps, looking out at the gray sky. She didn't feel triumphant, she felt free. Free from being called nothing without anyone challenging it. free from the silent rule that her labor didn't count unless a man approved it. And if you want more stories where justice shows up in the last possible minute, make sure you're subscribed. Like the video, share it with someone who needs the reminder, and drop a comment. What would you have said to Ethan if you were in that courtroom? Claire didn't walk away with a trophy. She walked away with her children's future and the knowledge that when the truth finally speaks, even the loudest liar has to listen. That isn't revenge. That's justice.